All right, everybody, welcome. I'm going to do another long format tutorial, and this one's going to be kind of unique, kind of a couple of firsts for me. And number one first is I'm going to be using Art Spectrum sanded paper. I've heard good things about this, but I've never actually used it. So I was at the art store a couple days ago, and I found this pack. It was the last pack, and I grabbed it. You can see this one comes in different colors. It's got 10 sheets. It's 230 pounds, so it's a nice thick paper. And I quickly grabbed it, and so that's what we have here. I chose the raw sienna for this scene. And this is sanded paper, so it's got a nice kind of a light grade sandpaper feel to the surface of it. Taped it on the sides here. And this particular sheet is 9 by 12 inches. I wish they had a bigger size, but that's all they had. Also, we'll be using 100% Paul Rubens. So here's my Paul Rubens set that I bought last year, and I've only used them once in that time. So this will be the second time using them, and I thought they would be a good oil pastel to use on sanded paper. And so this is my 48 count set that I got off Amazon. I think it cost me like $25.99 back when I bought it. I think you can still get it for like $27.99 on Amazon. So this will be the second time using them. And when you open it up here, get a little pamphlet, and then you can see they're all pretty new. Really only used them once. Okay. So Paul Rubens, so this will be a 100% Paul Rubens on sanded paper. And oops, dropped something. And then here is the reference picture here that I'll be painting from. This is from my own photo of Salmon River, which is in the Mount Hood National Forest area, maybe about a half hour to 40 minutes or so away from Mount Hood. And this is a hike I did a while ago, and I've done a painting on this one before that I did on Arches cold press paper, and I was using all my oil pastels before, and so I'll show you the before. I'll show you that painting later on, but here's a reference painting we're going to choose from. I just like the river, the rapids here. You see some underwater rocks here, which will be fun. A rocky shore, rocks that have moss on it, and then a lot of greenery, a lot of greens here. So I thought that would be a fun one to do here. And so yeah, let's get started. Okay, let's get started. Before I begin again, I am in my studio here. It's a very hot day in the Portland area. It's going to be about 100 degrees. The last few days here have been over 100 degrees. So I have a fan blowing on me, and I'm going to use that instead of my studio fan. Up here is what I normally use, but I noticed in my last video it makes a howling wind noise when it interferes with the mic. And so my studio gets very warm. And I have these windows that face the east, and so the sun comes right in, and then I have these skylights here. And so the studio gets just very, very warm, a good almost 10, maybe 15 degrees warmer than the rest of the house, even with the AC on, okay? All right, so let's get started with this painting here. Here's my reference picture again. Take a look at that. You see what I'm going to go with. Salmon River and a Mount Hood Forest. Okay, here are my Paul Rubens, and I'm just going to grab one color just to kind of draw things out. Maybe I'll go with this gray color here. Gray titanium dioxide is what it's called. And we're just going to compose the scene here, so I'm just going to be looking over at my reference and just kind of figuring out where things are going to be. And let's see, the river kind of ends over on this area right around here. And this is the first time I've used the Art Spectrum sanded paper. I've heard, like I said, I've heard good things about it, but I've never actually tried it, so this will be fun. And I'm just going to kind of follow the banks of the river and just kind of lightly figure out where this little Salmon River kind of runs as it kind of disappears way back in here in this area. Right about there, kind of disappears on that side. And then we have the banks of the river on this side, kind of come down. Here, there's some rocks. Here, some more rocks. A lot of rocks on this side of the shore. Here, and there's a big rock here that kind of comes up like this, and it kind of comes down like that, and it swoops down, and then it disappears down there. So something like that. Just an idea of kind of that rock that does that. And then we got a bunch of these big boulders here that kind of go along the shore here, and there's some of them that go right across the river. Here, just kind of draw the outline of the rocks here with this gray. I chose this color because this is a mostly green scenery. A lot of greens, different kinds of trees, shades of green. And I thought that it would be a good idea to use a complement color to those greens as my base, which is this raw sienna color here. So I thought that would be a better choice to go with. I don't know if it really matters in the end, but I imagine some of this orange raw sienna color will kind of come through, and I think that it will complement the greens. Okay, you get an idea. Just kind of loosely put some rocks in there. And then we have a tree that kind of comes up, actually a couple trees, but I'll draw it, and it kind of comes in about right here, kind of leans over there, and there's some branches that come off it. Okay, and we have another one in the back here, same idea, kind of leans into it. Right, some branches. Okay, and then over here we have another kind of rocky little ledge here, and then this is going to be all green over here, but I can at least kind of put in part of this landscape. And I'm not going for exact to the photograph, just kind of getting a general idea of how this scene would kind of look here. Just kind of keeping it real loose. There's some rocks down in here. One's coming here. Okay. So more or less, that's kind of what it looks like, and a lot of rocks are right in there. All right. Okay. So just kind of using one color there. I just chose this gray because it'll stand out against the orange. And we have some rapids. So this will be the river, the water area. This will be all trees, rocks. You get the idea. So I just use a gray for that. Okay, you can see that there. You can see kind of the things I was going for, the rocks, that shoreline, the rocky shoreline, and you got those trees there. So it's kind of what I did there. Okay. All right, let's keep going. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out some darks. I think trying to figure out where my darks are. And if you look again here at the photograph, you notice that, of course, the darkest areas are going to be right here in the front rocks, the shadows of these front rocks. Okay, the rocks here above the water, those darks are very much darker than the darks back in the distant part of the painting. Okay, so there's kind of different values there. So let's go to my set of Paul Rubens, try to pick out some darks. Kind of go with, this is a black. I'll stay away from black for right now. Here's a brown. Here's kind of a Prussian blue, I think. I can't read the color on that, but something like that. And then maybe even a little bit darker blue here. All right, let's just start with this and see how these work for establishing some darks. So this one is a phthalo blue, whatever how you want to say that. This one is a just called brown, and this is kind of your Prussian blue, even though I ripped the color name off, but that's basically kind of what it is. I'm going to start with the Prussian blue. This is kind of a good mid-value dark that I like to use a lot, and I'm going to kind of put in some darks here with this, and basically kind of the dark areas in the kind of the back half of the painting. I'm just going to go over with this Prussian blue and just kind of scrub in some darks in certain areas that I see it at. I see it in basically where the river meets the rocks, kind of that shoreline right there. Right, and then it kind of disappears. You can't really see the river as it kind of disappears back into the scene here. And then here we have a kind of a tree that's about right about here. Here, and I can see it kind of comes up like that. Okay, it's kind of a bigger tree. I'm not putting a lot of pressure down. I'm just letting the sandpaper paper just kind of take the color off for me. I'm not really pushing in a lot. Just kind of lightly just dragging it across. Some more trees. All right, some darks in here. Okay. Darks in here. Okay, and then over in this area now there are some rocks here in the water, kind of in the distant part of the water back in here, that are kind of sticking above the rapids here. So just kind of an indication of some rocks that are sticking up back in there. And then it's kind of dark here. I'm going to lose my tree branch a little bit, but we just kind of know where that is. And I'll come back and get that in later, but I kind of want to go for the darks of the painting right in here. So I might just go this whole thing just a Prussian blue, more or less, and some trees and limbs and things like that. Okay. Just kind of scrub that in. Now, I don't know how much this will spread around if I were to take my finger here. And it actually does spread pretty decently. Now these Paul Rubens are pretty soft. About as soft as the Senneliers. As far as their ability to move the color around is pretty easy. Because it's a soft oil pastel. And even on a sanded surface like this, you can see I'm just using my finger here to just kind of spread it around. Okay. And I hope the audio of this comes out okay. I have my back to my fan that's keeping me cool right now because it is a warm summer August day here in the Portland area. And I think we reached 108 degrees on, was that Monday? I think yesterday was like 105 or 103, which is, for this part of the country, it's blazing hot. Anything really above 90 is pretty hot for this area, so just fortunate we don't have humid heat. It's a dry heat for the most part. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing, just kind of smearing those colors around like that. Trying to find a mid-value dark. That seemed to work pretty good. All right, now let's go to a darker dark. So I have this phthalo blue, which should lay down a little darker here, and we'll get it into some of the base of these rocks here where I see here, and it's a slight value darker than that is. And if I put a brown on top of that, then it gets even darker. And I can kind of mix it in here with my finger and get like almost a black, but not quite. Here, and I'm just going for the darks and the kind of the foreground of this painting. Okay. I think it's easiest to work dark to light. To find the darks first, I think is always easiest to do. All right, so that's kind of how I go about it. And just where I see those, I'm just going to put those in. All right. And if you take a brown and a blue like this and you put them together, just kind of scrub it right over each other, and then you mix those in, you can get a very nice dark value here. Alright, so trying to find your darks, I think, right in the beginning, I think kind of helps you progress through the painting as we get going through with this. Alright, you can see. And I'm really just going to smear that around because I know that I'll use all of that. Okay. Smear it up into that area. And yeah, so this is the first time I've used the art spectrum. I've heard good things about it from other pastel artists. Never actually used it myself, so I think when I saw it at the art store and it was the only pad left of the art spectrum, I said, okay, I gotta try this out. I've heard enough good things about it. It's time to give it a go. So I snagged it. I wish it had a little bit slightly 9x12 is okay, but I wish it was at least an 11x14. I can probably find something like that online. I'm kind of going to remove this paper here. It's kind of getting in my way. Okay, so I'm going to take this brown. I'm going to find that tree trunk and go over that and the branch. All right, so we'll have to play with that a little bit to bring that out a little bit better, but don't want to lose it right here. Maybe even over here, this one's just slightly darker than the rest of them because it's a bigger tree, so a little bit more prominent. All right, get the idea with the darks. All right, let's keep going with this idea. Just going to take these two again here and just keep going. Find those areas. Seems to be a little shelf kind of right here in the river. That's a little darker. In fact, I think I'm going to use the Prussian blue for that situation. There's like a little drop off here where as the river is coming down through, creates these rapids here. So this paper is really nice. I do like the way that I'm able to even spread the color around using my just fingers here on this sanded paper. I wasn't sure how that would feel when I was thinking about it, but so far I'm liking it a lot. Okay. Feeling pretty good today. I started my day off with a 3-mile walk. Walked my dog. After that, had some breakfast and did a little bit of a workout and had a protein shake. And I'm feeling good. I got good energy today, so the only thing I was concerned about really was the heat in the studio, if it would be bearable. But with this fan, it's making things really nice, so not too bad about that. Okay, so underneath here we have some underwater rocks that are showing through, and I'm just going to work in the darks for those. Okay, if you see here, see these underwater boulders are underneath the water. Look at the darks there. It's a mid-value dark, so that's important to find those darks. So I'm going to kind of put those in. Okay, here and there. Okay, remember the darks underneath the water aren't as darks as the ones above the water. Okay, it's important to understand that. Otherwise, they will all have the same dark and it'll look very flat. So we're going for a dimension here, right? Going for a three-dimensional feel. Right, and even over here you can kind of see some underwater stuff happening. I've been more active with my YouTube channel. I've been uploading a lot of shorts, just short videos, trying to change the algorithm of my page to get a little bit more attention, because all I had was a bunch of long format videos, which doesn't do very well with retaining people. So I kind of want a variety of options for people to view and look at. And I still feel that these long format videos are helpful. I get enough feedback from you guys that you enjoy them and that they're helpful, so that kind of keeps me making them. And decided to do this one because this is a new for me as far as using this paper, and second time I've used the Paul Rubens, so it's kind of a new challenge for me. All right. Okay, so let's put these down for a second, take a look there. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Maybe we can kind of get in the color of the river. So let's look at the color of the river. Some greens, some browns, right? And then the white water in there. Okay, so color of the river, greens and browns. And I think this green's probably going to be a good one to go with. And then we need some browns. Maybe even this brown that we're using might work. And maybe even like this. Maybe a couple of those. So we'll try that one. And maybe even these. Okay. So we have a I don't know, dark green, whatever. We have a brown. We have a olive green. This is olive green. And then we have this burnt umber color. Okay. All right. Pretty good. Let's start etching in. So I'm going to start with this darker green here. I see a little bit of that in there. And let's see what that looks like when I spread it. It's a nice deep color there, really dark green. Okay. Well, that sanded paper is really nice with these Paul Rubens. I had a feeling it would be. I think this is the kind of paper that's going to be best for this brand. Just because to be able to get layers with this, I need a paper that's got some tooth to it, so I don't run out of ability to layer. That was one of the problems I was having with my last YouTube tutorial I did with these Paul Rubens. Not my last one, but the very first time I used Paul Rubens, I used Arch's cold press paper, which is a great paper. But I was struggling part way into that when I was trying to get these Paul Rubens to stack on top of each other. I was having a little bit of a problem with that. And because things are kind of starting to slide around on me, so I figured the toothier the paper with these Paul Rubens, probably the better. All right. Okay, let's mix in this burnt umber with the green, see what that looks like. I think I want to go a little darker than that, so I'm going to use this dark brown for the water over here, which is mostly a brown. And layer the green on top of that. And just kind of use my finger to spread it around. Right, trying to find that exact color that I see over there. Try to layer some of these to get to that point. That's about, we're getting closer. It's the fun part of this is finding the color combinations that are going to get you the color that you're really looking for. And finding those is really fun. Okay, this is underwater stuff, so I'm gonna have to come back in and hit that a little bit, but keep going with this. Taking these three colors here. Well, they spread pretty good. I need a darker shoreline right there, so let's bring back this darker blue for that. And a brown on top of that. We might have to go black here to get what I really want. Okay, keep going. And in here, I see more of this kind of green, olive green, kind of in this section. So I'm just going to start with that. But I do see some browns in there. But we'll start with this olive green, see what that gives us. See it right in here too. And it's even mixed in with this burnt sienna. And then maybe even a little bit of a brown. And just see what that does. Yeah, I think that's about right. Okay, that'll be the big rock there. You can see those darks underneath the water starting to come out a little, which is good. All right, pretending those are underwater rocks. So if you're new to my channel, hello and welcome. Glad you are here. I have a lot of videos on my YouTube now. I think I'm up to 90. Some of those are shorts too, and some of them are full format, long format videos that I offer. Looks pretty good right in there, doesn't it? All right, let's keep going with this olive green. So yeah, welcome to the channel. Hope you find some useful information here. If you're interested, this is now, I said this before, but this is my second time using the Paul Rubens. So the first time I've used them, I made a video on that, and that's on my YouTube. You can kind of go through the history of my channel or my videos, and you'll find it there. And so I wanted to try these Paul Rubens again, because I don't hate them. I actually do like them. I think it's a pretty decent quality oil pastel. The colors are really vibrant, and they're affordable, right? They're budget friendly, right? I mean, that's really nice. You know how expensive these art supplies can be, right? And so to find something that is affordable, and the affordable range is pretty good thing to have. Right, let's keep going. Gonna bring in some of this olive green on top of this. Now, as far as quality wise with these Paul Rubens, I don't feel that the same quality as Sennelier oil pastels. I think the Senneliers, in my experience so far, have been the best quality-wise, but they are expensive. And you know, a big set of Senneliers can cost you a few $100s. And a 48 count of Paul Rubens would only be less than $30. So it's a big difference. So if your budget doesn't allow for the Senneliers, I get it. Totally get that. Might want to look into these Paul Rubens if you want a soft oil pastel. And I feel it's a good compromise, and because I think it's helpful to have different types of oil pastels, some softer ones, some harder ones. And so yeah, these Paul Rubens can save your budget. That's for sure. Okay, so we're just getting in the colors of the river. It's kind of some different greens, some deeper greens, and then some lighter greens, and then it's got some of this burnt sienna in it as well. Right, for the rocks here that are underneath the water. Right. I think that looks pretty good as is. I don't know if I want to keep messing with that. And yeah. Sweet. Okay, let's keep going with this. So up here, now this is mostly white water, but right in here we have this little shelf of rocks where you can see the darker kind of greens and blues in there, and then we have, this is kind of some rocks or something that kind of show the green of the water. But all this is going to be mostly white. So I'm a layer type of pastel artist. I like to layer colors on top of each other to get certain effects, certain looks. And so that's kind of my style. So I will layer colors on top of each other to get what I'm kind of looking for. And I'll just kind of keep adding things until I get just to the right color or value that I want. Boy, this sandpaper is really, really helpful to do this with the Paul Rubens. I can easily just scrub color on and spread it. This is definitely the paper to use with the Paul Rubens. This art spectrum. Glad I picked it up. Okay, and this is going to be all. There's a bunch of white breaking water in there. Even over here, there's a little bit of that green, lighter green. Okay, looking pretty good. Let's get some of these darker darks in there. I have to come in with the black here to make them a little bit more, stand out a little bit more. Don't normally use black when I do landscapes, but I'm doing a slightly different method by just using one brand, so might have to pull out some black. Okay, let's get in some of these rocks. So you see where I'm going with the water. Okay. And you can see underneath the surface of the water, the darks here is just this this Prussian blue type, okay? And you can kind of get in the shadows of those rocks, how they separate a little from each other. Right. Okay. And yeah, it works pretty good for that. Okay, so let's get colors of the rocks. So let's look at the rocks. Just a bunch of grays, different kinds of grays and mossy greens, some highlighted lighter grays, some mid grays. So probably going to use this one. And here's another gray. This is a light gray. And I hope my audio is okay on this with the fan going behind me. I hope it doesn't sound too distracting or annoying. But there's no way I could have not have the fan. It's just way too hot here. And what is this? This is a light yellow. Don't know if I'll use that. Here's a white. Might use that. And another kind of gray. What is this? This is a brown soil. They call it brown soil. Okay. So just basically some different types of grays here. Let's try this gray titanium dioxide. All right. Let's just color the rocks, which is really just different variations of a gray. Okay, there's one. There's another one that sticks up. And one right here. Okay. They look pretty bright with this color here, so I might see what it looks like if I bring a brown soil to it and just kind of change them a little bit. Okay, pretty good. Let's see, this one is a brown kind of a color. I think it helps for the rocks to have kind of different colors so they're not all the same gray. You know, they don't really look believable when they're all the exact same color. Okay, so I like to vary it up a little, slightly on them. There's one sticking out. Okay. There's one here. Now, some of these here are mossy. Got a lot of green on it. So let's get that green mossy color, maybe even a light green for a little bit of a highlight area, but let's put some of these mossy greens in here. So right in here, there's a mossy one right in the front here, big one. All right, and then it's really light here. This is really light. Wow, it really pops out. That's a light gray. But look how bright that guy looks right there. Right? Just kind of following the picture somewhat as far as where these are. Okay, there, and then kind of darkens right here. Here's some right in here. Right, just kind of going through it slowly, one rock at a time, and we'll eventually get to where we need to be. Slowly and surely. Right. I think I need a little bit of a blue on some of the shadows of this. Little goes a long way with that. Here it's kind of dark. For being a warm day, these are actually holding up pretty good. I was wondering if they're going to be a little soft or greasy on me, but they seem to be doing okay in this hot studio. In the summertime, when we get to these 100-degree days, it's pretty hard to be in the studio. It's just too hot to work, really, without a fan. And then the opposite happens in the wintertime when we get those really cold days. The studio is pretty cold, so I usually have a little heater going. But no heater today. Let's bring out a brown. Brown on the blue. Kind of darkens it up a little bit more for me. Keep going. Just keep finding those color changes, and eventually we'll get to where we need to be. It's interesting, you can still see the orange of the paper come through on these, which is fine. Smear those around a little bit. Got to bring some of that mossy green color back into it, and I will as soon as I get a little bit more color down here. Just looking at that rock and looking at where the highlights are, where the brights are, where it's not so bright, trying to just match that here. Right. And let's get some more of that green into it. Get that moss. Make it look a little bit more believable. This is getting a little gooey. So I'm going to take a towel and just kind of wipe it up a little bit. Just a regular paper towel is good for that. Some of the colors seem to lay a little better than others, and that's normal. Even with other brands, I notice that. Even with Senneliers, certain colors are softer. Certain sticks feel softer, and some feel harder, even in the same brand. So you'll notice that as you're working with the oil pastels, that even consistency among colors is going to be different. Okay, looks pretty good. Let's continue to find the outline of that one there. Okay, now back here we do have moss, rocky moss. And kind of this olive green color on most of those. Not to be confused with the green in the water though. Right, so I'm going to add a little bit of a brown, darker brown to those. Okay. We'll make it all work eventually. Just keep going. As I say, just keep making marks. Keep adding layers of color. It'll eventually get to where you want it to be. Just keep working it. All right, that looks pretty good right there. It's nice when you already have the dark in there and you can just go right into it like that. I'm going to have to add some darks to that area. Okay. Keep going with the mossy rocks. There's a big one right here, we'll say. I'm going to say there's a big one right there. Comes down into there. I need a highlight on some of these because they start to blend in with each other. So I need to come back in with a lighter green and kind of hit the tops of those. So we'll do that here in a minute. So, or you can go with this gray titanium dioxide to use as a highlight too. You can see that there. But I think a lighter green would look better than that. Okay. Some darks. There's a dark right in there. There's another mossy rock right about here. It's a strong highlight for this little area. But it really is a light gray, but it really pops out against all these other colors. All right. And I need some darks right in here. And then that is water right there. Slowly coming together. Now let's add a little bit of the lighter green right on the tops of these. See how that looks. Trying to stack that right there at the top of those rocks where the light kind of hits it the best. Okay, not too crazy, but let's put these down right here for a second. Sometimes you gotta like wipe in between applications just to get a nice color on here, or a nice clean edge to work to scrub those in. Right. And the color sometimes doesn't want to sit down. But to kind of work it, you'll figure it out. You might have to twist the oil pastel in your hand a little bit to drop it down. So it's a little bit of a different color than I was wanting, but I think it'll still pretty much work. I might bring somewhat of an ochre to it, just to change that up a little. Okay, so play around with that a little bit. A little bit of ochre on the green. I think it'll gives me a little closer to what I was kind of going for. Yeah, so this green is different consistency than what is underneath, so it's getting a little hard to just drop the color down on it. You gotta have to kind of push into it a little, but it'll get there. Need a darker value right there, so I need to go with this brown. There we go. Okay, some mossy rocks. All right, and some of these just have a little highlight on them. Okay. Yeah, that looks a little better. Here, and we need a little bit of a green right here on some of these. A little bit of a moss growing here on some of these. Okay. The key is just to make them all just a little different from each other. So everything's not uniformly the same color, I think, is kind of your best bet on those. Then also the darks on these, remember the darks here are darker than the darks in the water, okay? And so to achieve that, I just kind of use that dark blue and then this brown kind of over it if I want to. And then I also even have a black here. Now black is very dark, and so be careful with it. It can overpower sometimes the other values. So you just have to I kind of just feather that in a little bit. Put a little bit down here. I normally don't use blacks, but in this situation, I think I need it. Just to get those values differentiate a little bit more with each other, especially here in these foreground areas here. Right? You want your darkest darks have to be here in the front. Okay, that's important. And then I'm going to put a little bit of back here too, just to kind of separate that shore a little bit more. But not a lot. It's important to control that a little bit. Okay, keep going now. Back in here, this shore here, I do see some greens. Kind of some mossy areas back in here. All right, and then I do see this lighter ochre, not ochre, this tan, whatever this is. What is this? Burnt umber. There's a shelf of rocks over here. What are we doing? 57 minutes. I'm going to take a little break. I like to keep these about an hour at a time, but we're making great progress. You can see I'm kind of working up as I go through it. There's again the reference. Okay, so let's go ahead and pause this, and this will be part 1.